Okay, welcome back to Anim Zemirot, everybody. Very, very quick recap. Anim Zemirot, part of Shiur HaYichud, very, very holy prayer, um, given over to the children very often. Question asked why, if it's so holy, do we give it over to the children? And the answer, of course, is because the children are so holy. Uh, Many places don't say it at all. Some places only say it on Yom Kippur. Other places say it on Tisha B'Av afternoon. Minhag Ashkenaz is to say it on a Shabbat morning, generally speaking. Various different places in the davening where it said some say it after Shacharit, some say it after Musaf. All of those things we've discussed in great detail in the previous Shiurim. Those that haven't heard it, you can listen to it on the recording. I think this is part 4 of Anim Zemirot. So there's 3 hours worth if you're really interested to go back and listen to. We also said that the author, who is said to be, who can remember? Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, it was said to be, but then there was a suggestion that it was a bit earlier, possibly one of his ancestors, because maybe 100 years before that. But Rabbi Yehuda Chassid of Regensburg is traditionally the author, and we said that the author, whoever it is, was in a bit of a dilemma because it's poetry, but it could be misunderstood. Because it talks, as we're about to see, it talks about the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in bodily terms. And of course, we know, don't we, from Yigdal, and of course, Yigdal is a reflection of the 13 principles of faith, that Ein Lo Demut HaGuf, Ve'ein Lo Guf. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not have any bodily form. So when we talk about HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hand and his bodily form, it's a bit of a problem. So we have this tension here. And so if you remember, if you look carefully, you can see that the alphabetic acrostic doesn't begin until line 5. We did this last week. Asapara Kavodacha is the first line of the acrostic. So the first 4 lines, this is what we've talked about so far, is the introduction. And part of that introduction is to tell us that we are going to sing the praises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this particular manner, recognizing that it has its limitations. So that's where we got to, and we did Aleph and Bet last week. Asaprak Vodacha, I will tell of your glory, Saprach Vodacha, Velora Iticha, but I can't see you. You can't be seen. And we mentioned again that the connection there with Moshe Rabbeinu, who asked, Hareini na et kvodecha, show me your glory. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, can't do that because no man can see my face and live. So you can just get a glimpse of the back of me, whatever that means. And then the Midrash says that the Torah says that Kodesh Baruch Hu put him in the crack in the rock, covered him over with his hand, and he passed by. And the Gemara says, what did Moshe see? His back, and in particular, Keshet Tefillin, the knot of a Kodesh Baruch Hu's Tefillin, right? The knot of a Kodesh Baruch Hu's Tefillin, really? Wait a minute, he doesn't have a head. Ein lo demut haguf, ve'ein lo guf. So you can see this tension, and you also have to remember that we are coming at this from a very different position to previous generations. I don't know about you, but from a very young age, I did not have any desire to bow down to an idol. Right? Anybody here ever had a desire to bow down to an idol? No, because it's, from a very young age, I remember thinking, are these people stupid? The famous Midrash with Avraham Avinu, where he puts the hammer in the hand of the big idol, and having smashed all the small idols, and Terach comes back and says, "What's happened here?" And he says, "Oh, that big idol smashed them all up." Right? It's a famous midrash. That midrash is very easy for us to understand because we come from a society where avodah zarah is completely out. We have no connection to avodah zarah. It doesn't do anything for us. But we have to understand that in previous generations, avodah zarah, which idol worship, the very name that we give it is disparaging, isn't it? Idol worship. It's like, you can't give anybody a worse insult than you're an idol worshipper. But for those people, this was a very real thing.
The famous people become idol.
They do, and we do. So we do have idol worship today. You're right.
And footballers.
Yeah, we have idol worship in a different way, but we don't. We don't have maybe some people do.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Also, a little bit of pushback is that although it wasn't classic idol worship, what happened at Anim was also there was an image of a Buddha that was several meters high.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
We
talking begadol, Hannah. I'm not talking.
we don't have.
No, I'm not. I'm not getting into specifics here because the point is that in Western society, okay, I'm not talking about in the East and the Buddhas I'm talking in Western society, Judeo-Christian Muslim society. Idol worship is not something that we have a Yetzer Hara for. We have a Yetzer Hara for other stuff, but not for what we were taught in the Torah when we were kids in Cheder was idol worship, right? And for us, we can't really grasp how important that was. If you read the Rambam, Maimonides, Rambam says that every single mitzvah in the Torah, bar none, all 613 mitzvot are in some way a method of moving us away from avodah zarah. Every single one of them. That is how fundamental avodah zarah was. And if you take avodah zarah as a more esoteric idea as opposed to that physical bowing down to idols that we thought of when we were kids, then it still is the case. But in terms of a physical idol, a statue of Buddha, a picture of Yoshki on the cross, whatever it is, right? For us as Jews, we have very little desire today or draw to that kind of physical worship where you would bow down to a pesel, a thing. Now, that wasn't the case back in the day. And so therefore, this idea for us of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's not in his tefillin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hand, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's that, we can get it because we know and understand that this is only metaphorical. It's not difficult for us to grasp that that this is not talking about idols. It's not talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We don't believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a hand and a head and a leg and then everything else. But if you try and get your mindset into back in the day when this was the accepted norm, this was very dangerous stuff. To be describing HaKadosh Baruch Hu in these physical terms was dangerous stuff. If you read Sefer Shoftim all the way through, the problem with the Bnei Yisrael in Shoftim was not that they didn't serve Hashem. They did. But they also served the idols, right? They had their bamot, their high places, right? David will tell you, he'll take you there if you want to go to all these places where there are the remnants of these idols. They would have, particularly Baal, which was the Canaanite idol, what you did was you went to the highest place. By the way, there's nothing new about that. We do it today, right? In the until not very long ago, not that many years ago, it was forbidden in England to have a building higher than the church spire. Why do you think the church spires are so high? Anybody seen church spires? They go narrower and narrower. What's the point of all that? What's the point of that? You can't do anything with that space. The idea was that the highest point
Right, is the truth.
is the holiest point. So you were not allowed to have a building higher than the church spire. Okay, I'm not sure when that went out of sort of usage, but it's not that long ago. It's not that long ago in the terms of history, right? So what they would do during the time of Shoftim was that they would serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were, do what they're meant to do, but they would also have their bamot and their high places, and they'd have these obelisks, right, David? On the highest part of the kfar, the highest part of the tel, you go to these, chirbet this and chirbet that. Tel Gezer, there's a good example, right? You see these things. Now, the Bnei Israel, during this period of Shoftim, there was times when they exclusively served HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that was when it says, V'hi Shalom Ba'aretz, and Arba'im Shana, there was 40 years of peace because everything was good, and then they fell into bad habits again. They didn't abandon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can read all up in Shoftim and also other non-canonical writings. They served what the historians describe as Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. They served HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but they also served the idols. So we have to understand that for us, it's not a big deal that we describe Kadosh Baruch Hu in bodily terms. We can deal with this tension between Ein Lo Demut HaGuf Ein Lo Guf, that Kadosh Baruch Hu is our very body, and the description of it. We can deal with it, but it was a dangerous business for those who were used to that kind of thing. I merely point that out.
Period. You say Rabbi Hasid or a bit before, it was already a Christian society where it wasn't so.
Well, it was a Catholic society.
Yeah.
That's true. But the Catholic society definitely were into their crosses and their.
But it's not the.
You're right. It's not true Avodah Zarah, although
Shutaf.
the whole Trinity business.
They like their statues, though, didn't they?
Yeah, there's no church without
Statue. So whenever you see a priest come into a church, he'll always bow down, won't he? On the whatever when you see Yoshli up there.
Yeah, many people come into shul and bow down in front of the Aron Kodesh.
Yeah. Very nice.
But there's it's we're not allowed to make. You're not allowed to make a pesel. You're not allowed to make these things.
Is that an idea for when the Sefer Torah goes round? Because when I was young, the idea was you were told to bow.
Yeah.
Is that a correct thing to do?
It is a correct thing to do because you're bowing to the Sefer Torah. You're not bowing to a pesel. The Ten Commandments says you shall not create a pesel, a graven image. From house, you will not find any ornaments of, people or what have you. When I qualified as a doctor, my parents, who were avid collectors of, fancy gear, they bought me a Ladro piece. For those of you who don't know Ladro, anyone know Ladro? Ladro is a fancy china, very expensive.
Wedgwood,
Huh?
like Wedgwood.
Yeah, like Wedgwood, it's a similar idea. It's much nicer than like Wedgwood, actually. They had Wedgwood as well. Wedgwood was all the rage when I was a little kid. My parents had loads of it. Yeah, so they bought me this Ladro piece, which is a doctor, a very tall, elegant-looking guy with a stethoscope round his neck and looking very, professorial. And they bought me this. They didn't know what to do with it. It's a pestle. Many people would not have kept that in their house. Other people would have broken a bit off it, Well, you find that. You find that people, many from people, break a little bit off. So it's not a proper pesel. Um, so, how do we get to that pesel, tumuna? Okay. So, yeah, so bowing down to the Sefer Torah is very different to bowing down to, a picture of Yoshki on the cross or a Buddha. Okay, so I just wanted to stress that because it's difficult for us to understand how, inverted commas, I suppose, revolutionary this kind of poem was. It was a bit sort of dangerous. I've been listening recently to a whole series on Shabtai Tzvi, and the aftermath of Shabtai Tzvi, the false Messiah, it's felt even till today, because of the power of what he was talking through and the way he convinced people, which is a bit difficult for us to understand now. But back in the 17th century, when he was the false Messiah, it was a very different world. And that's really the point I want to make. Now, let's go on to Gimel. We've got to Gimel. So, where are we? There's my Gimel. Here we go. Gedulatecha, your greatness. Ugvuratecha. This seems to be the word of the day today, doesn't it? Yeah. Gvura. Gvuratecha, your might, your strength. Okay. Kinu letokef pu'ulatecha. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask Hannah this question, or Jackie. Right? Tell me about Gdula u'Gvura. Why particularly does the author mention Gdula and Gvura, apart from the fact that they happen to begin with the letter Gimel, which is convenient for the acrostic? Why Gdula and Gvura? Now, those of you who will know that there is a reason why I said that Hannah and Jackie have to answer this question. It is indeed a Kabbalistic thing. Hannah, tell us.
I can only guess. Gdula is a combination of Chokhmah and Chesed, and Gvura is steadfastness.
So, according to my
there's a whole list in the Kabbalah.
Yeah, according to my interpretation here, they are the first two midot in Kabbalistic language of the Sfirot. Gdula and Gvura are the beginning of the Sfirot, the different spheres of Kabbalah. But even without Kabbalah,
wait a second. It goes. The Sfirot go. Keter Chokhmah Bina Chesed Gvura Tiferet Netzach Hod Yesod Malchut. But Gdula is very often a combination of Chokhmah, which is a highest Sifra, and Chesed, the two combined together, and Gdula and Gvura is the next one down.
Okay, so in any event, Gdula and Gvura are connected with the Sfirah, the Kabbalah, but even without the Kabbalah, they are still basic Tanakh terms of divine power. We talk about, do we not talk about in Shemona Esra? Baruch atah Hashem, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor. There you go. Hagadol, Hagibor. These are basic traits, midot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Your greatness and your might, kinu. Kinu. We had this in one of the other shiurim recently. We talked about it when we talked about Gittin. Kinu. What is? Kinu is a name. It's how you're known as, right? Kinui is a nickname, right? We spoke about it in Gittin when we were talking about Gittin. When you have a divorce, If somebody has a divorce, Jackie was kind enough to put his hand up and tell us that in his divorce document it said Yaakov Hamechuneh Jackie.
Known as Jackie.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
were going to ask Dan whether it gets opened.
Oh, I never asked him. You're right. You're right. I need to ask him. I forgot to ask him. I will do. I'll try and remember to do it. So Kinu is what you are known as. So your greatness and your might describe le tokef. What's a tokef?
Translated there.
A might, power. What's tokef in modern Hebrew? If you get asked on the phone, what is the tokef?
To a test.
Validity.
Office to a test.
The expiry date. If you're giving out your credit card details, they'll ask you for the long number, and then they'll say tokef, which means what is the expiry date? So your tokef, right?
The cover to that.
Yeah, same idea. But in terms of the expiry date, why is the expiry date tokef? Because after the expiry date, your credit card has no power, right? Has no power, has no might, has no ability. So the word tokef means power, might, or force. So your greatness and your strength, they describe the force of pu'ulatecha, of your actions, So kinu is a verb. They gave names, right? They gave names. So tokef is power, force, incentive, your action. So the poem is very careful here. It's describing God through his actions, through the actions of God. We're not describing the essence of God because we can't do that. That's where we get into the problematic area when we try and describe the essence of God. We can own, and this is what the poem is telling us, that we can own. God is so unimaginable that we can only understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the power of his actions. So his actions describe his greatness. It's a very subtle but important distinction that the poem is making, that we're not describing the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're describing the actions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we can never get anywhere near the real essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We can only get there through the messages of his actions. Okay. Any questions on Gimel?
That's great when everything's going good. When things are going bad, that's when we start questioning.
Well, this is what we said earlier on, isn't it? When Jeff raised that question, this is the fundamental question of Moshe Rabbeinu. Hareini na et kvodecha. Show me your glory, which meant show me why good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. Why did children get burned on the 7th of October? Why did people get, put in the crematoria? Tzadikim, Tinokot Shel Beit Rabban. These are questions that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to know the answer to, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you can't. And it goes to the fundamentals, Jackie. As you say, all well and good when things are going well. That's the test of faith. And this is what Jeffrey was saying. There'll be times in a person's life when your faith is tested. Your faith is it's all very nice when things are going right. Oh, yeah, I can believe in the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Kodesh Baruch Hu is great. But what happens when something hits you in between the eyes? It's a bit harder. And that's, I suppose, going back to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Shiur, that's the Gibor Ka'ari, isn't it? That's what he's telling us. And that's why it's so difficult to do. It's to be as strong like a lion. It's an expression, but when you stop and think about it, it's how many of us are strong like a lion, right? I was saying to Robert this morning. Robert said to me, how's my wife doing with the knee replacement? And said she's doing really well. She's doing really well because she's done her exercises exactly as she should, and she's very strong and she's very, is able to overcome the pain. And I said, she and I had a discussion last night, and I said, "There's no way I'm having this operation. If I ever need one, forget it." Because I know my limitations. I'm not Gibor Ka'ari like she is. I will not do the exercises the way they're meant to be done, and I won't put up with a pain the way she's put up with a pain, and so it won't do very well. So I'm sticking with my dodgy knee, right? So I'm not Gibor Ka'ari in that respect. Maybe in other respects, but not in that respect, right? To be Gibor Ka'ari when your faith is tested is it's very difficult.
I think you tell Johnny went for a Levaya, the soldier here.
Yeah.
And you saw you mentioned it on the Shiur.
Yeah.
Face,
Unbelievable. Just over here in Avradim,
Yeah.
I went to a funeral and a shiva of a soldier who was killed in 7th of October or shortly afterwards. And it was unbelievable. Their faith was Gibor Ka'ari. And I remember coming out of there thinking, I'm a pygmy compared to these people. And these people were not observant, right? I don't know what they do, put that in their mouths, but on Shabbat, they don't keep Shabbat. And believe you me, their faith was way, way higher than mine. It's not so poshut. And I suppose that goes back to the whole idea of orthopraxy and orthodoxy, doesn't it? How much of what we are doing is really based on true faith? And when we are tested, God forbid, like those people were tested with the death of a child, lo aleinu, would we come up? Would we be able to handle that? I can't answer that question, Baruch Hashem. So these are questions of faith which we often, skirt over. But every now and again, like, today, it comes up and it doesn't do us any harm to stop and think about these things for a moment, right? Think deeply about these things. Many of us will go through a day, a week, a month, a year without thinking about these concepts of faith. We just go through our business and we come to shul and we go home and we daven and we make kiddush and we celebrate sukkahs and all those things we do, and we go and we buy our arba minim and we burn our chametz and all those things. How often do we stop and think about faith in a Kadosh Baruch Hu? Probably the answer is not often enough. Maybe some more, some less. But this kind of, when you look, Anim Zemirot, how many times have we said it? 1 billion times, right? Do we really know what it's about? I didn't really know what it's about till I started doing this. It's a bit of a shake. It shakes you up a bit, I think. Yeah, Eggy.
When you get up in the morning, you don't think. But the first thing you do, you go, you daven, you put on. Even you don't have the kavuns, everything is there. Somewhere you get in, you do it because you believe it. You believe it in great, even if you don't think about it, but you think that's the right thing to do, and somewhere you get it close to Hashem, even if you don't, you do the things because you have to do them, even if you don't believe that I have to do it, that's the real, you don't, in every detail, you don't believe it, and you don't think, but somewhere you put yourself, your life, in a certain context.
Okay, I just want to repeat that because it's important. Eggy says that if you get up in the morning and you don't really necessarily think about it too much, but the first thing you do is you daven and you put on your tefillin, that somewhere along the line it's demonstrating a certain belief, whatever sort of level we're talking about, maybe a bit of a superficial level, you're not really got your kavanos in there. And I think that's true. I think that's true of some people. There are other people who, and I've seen this, and I've been staggered sometimes. There are other people who do those mitzvot really with the kavanah of belief, and then go about their business in a completely different way, right? It's quite remarkable. I had a builder once when we were doing some shipputzim, Sephardi guy, never wore a kapel, never, I would have considered. As far as I knew, he was, chilonei. Never had any discussions with him about anything. One day he came and he came in and he said to me, "Have you got tefillin in the house?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can I use them?" He says, "I never ever miss tefillin. But this morning I had to take the wife to the airport, blah, 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 blah. And I came straight from there to here and I haven't put on tefillin. You could have knocked me down with a feather. Would never have imagined that this guy would have put on tefillin. He says, I never, ever miss putting on tefillin. I said, you've got a bit of a problem because mine are Ashkenaz and yours Sfard and they don't. But anyway, he put on my Ashkenaz tefillin and that was. But I was amazed. I was amazed. And when he puts on his tefillin, he absolutely believes. And I've seen it very much so with the Sephardim. Generally speaking, I've seen it with the Sephardim. Their level of observance may not be so. I'm not talking about all Sephardim, obviously. I'm talking about some Sephardim. Their level of observance may not be so high, but their level of belief, I think, is often higher than us Ashkenazim, who might be doing more. I think we might tend to be towards a bit of orthopraxy from time to time. I'm speaking about myself. I'm not speaking about anybody else. Whereas the Sephardim, my experience, they seem to have a very strong element of belief, even if some of them are not as observant as they might be. So belief is and kavana is a very important thing. Okay, let's go. Yeah.
Does this make sense in English? I'm referring to the thing. Your greatness and your strength are validated by your actions.
You're great. So repeating for the recording, Hannah says the translation there was that an art scroll?
No, it's my head.
Oh, in your head. Okay. In Hannah's head, she says your strength and your greatness are validated by your actions. I think that works. I think that works. I think that works because what we're saying is what you're saying there is what we've already said, and that is we can only understand your greatness by your actions because we can't get to the essence of you. I think what you're
your actions also don't contradict it. It's like we say that everything that God does is good. Yeah, even if we don't always see the good immediately. Yeah,
well, that's a belief. That is a core belief that is, again, it's a difficult one, isn't it? When you see, bad things happening to good people, that tests that core belief. It is a core belief. We do believe, we are meant to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Kol Tuv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is all good. As you say, we don't always see that. We don't always see the bigger picture. I certainly don't pretend to understand some of the things that I'm in the Pinchas Kernitz camp here. After 120 years, I'm going to get up there to Shemaim and I'm going to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what were you playing at? That was what Pinky said. What his actual words were, what the hell were you playing at? He's going to take HaKadosh Baruch Hu to a din Torah. Those of you who knew Pinky, you can imagine him there with his stick there, taking HaKadosh Baruch Hu to a din Torah. Yeah, we just have to. There are certain things that we are beyond our understanding. Let's go on to Daled. Dimu otcha. Dimu. It's a verb.
Imagine.
They imagined. Yes, imagine. Dimyon is to imagine. So if you say, and also it means likeness as well. So dimu otcha. They imagined you. Who's they? Us, yeah. Kadosh Baruch Hu is the people. Velo kafi yeshcha. They imagined you, but not
Like you are.
kafi yeshcha. What's yesh? What's yesh?
You have.
Yeah. Not kafi, according to what you have. So they imagined you, and this is the most fundamental theological line in the entire poem, because what he's saying is, however much we can imagine a HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yechezkel ben Buzi, right? The prophet Yechezkel, all these visions of the Kisei Kavod, the God's glorious throne with animals over here and sapphires and rubies and all mad things going on there in the thing, right? You can imagine all of that stuff. However, vivid your imagination is, whatever, hallucinogenic drugs you've taken to get to these visions, they are not kafi yeshcha. They don't come anywhere near what you have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We recognize that we are utterly limited in our imagination of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that you can see, now you understand why this poem is so powerful, why people don't want to say it, why they consider it to be too holy. This is theological basis. The theological basis of all belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here in that line. However much we imagine you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we can't come anywhere near imagining it, right? Lahavdil. It's a bit like, somebody thinking, well, what must it be like to be a rich person? Who's the richest person in the world? Jeff Bezos?
No.
Elon
No.
Musk? Okay. What's he got?
A trillion.
$1 trillion. $3 trillion, right? What must it be like to have $3 trillion?
It's not bad, I quite right.
Yeah. It's not, we can't, you can't imagine that, right? $1 million, maybe you can imagine what it might be like to have $1 million. $3 trillion, it makes no sense. It's beyond our imagination. That's the point. Lahavdil. Multiply that, by infinity, as it were, and that is the difference between us trying to imagine what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's strengths are and to what his real strengths are. And so, again, you can see that the author is struggling with this whole idea. I don't know how to describe HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to say these songs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the truth is, everyone, I can't. Because I can't possibly imagine what he's like. Anything that I say diminishes HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because if I say he's great, well, that's not, what does that mean? I've just compared HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were, to Elon Musk, right? That's the only thing I could think of in terms of this difference but that's a chutzpah, right? How can I do such a thing? And that's what this author is saying. He's saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just beyond everything. It's beyond. So dimu otcha aval lo kafi yeshcha, not according to what you truly are. Okay. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's, yeah.
Yeshcha is what you've got. It's not Elon Musk. Yeah. It's not what you've got. It's not what God's got. Yeah. We imagine him, but not according to what he's got, not all the glory, not all the jewels, not all the kisei hakavod. Because the next three words are v'yeshvucha lefi ma'asecha. Yeah,
Okay.
we equalize you, v'yeshvucha, according to your deeds, according to what you do. Yeah, it's not what you've got or what you are; it's what you do.
Oh, that's a nice idea. We're actually talking about Kodesh Baruch Hu, but
Yeah.
you could turn this back on ourselves. Hannah's idea is a very lovely idea. Let's just talk about it, what it actually means with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and then let's turn it back on ourselves. So they imagined or compared you, but they couldn't get anywhere near you. That's what the first bit says. Dimu velo kafi yeshcha v'yashvucha. And they compared you, or they equalized you. They understood your worth. Shaveh means worth. Okay, they understood your worth lefi ma'asecha, according to your deeds. So this is what you just said before, Hannah. Gdulatcha ugvuratecha kinu latof b'olatecha. Hannah said in her head what she understood was that God's greatness, how did you say it, was validated by his actions. That's what this is saying here. The only way we can validate HaKadosh Baruch Hu is through his actions. But I like the idea of turning this on ourselves, right? Dimu velo kafi yeshcha. Your worth, we will compare you, what we imagine about you, is not according to what you have, But v'yashvucha lefi masecha. You are worth what you do, your good deeds. That's a beautiful idea. It's a beautiful idea. And it reminds me very much of the famous story of Sir Moses Montefiore, who was, the Elon Musk of his day in terms of wealth. He was the wealthiest man in Britain at one point. He was once asked by somebody, Sir Moses, how much are you worth? And he said, £100,000. And they said, come on, you got much, much more than that. Millions. He says, you didn't ask me how much I had. You asked me how much I was worth. I'm worth what I've given away. And that's what I've given away this year or whatever it was, that figure. That's what I've given away. That's what I'm worth. All the rest is what I have. What I'm worth is what I've given away. A beautiful idea. And that, if we turn this back on ourselves as opposed to describing a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and remember, we are created, B'Tselem Elokim, we are meant to reflect HaKadosh Baruch Hu's midot. Kadosh Baruch Hu is rachamim. We're meant to be rachamim. Kadosh Baruch Hu is erech apayim, long suffering. We're meant to be long suffering. So if we are saying that we don't reckon Kadosh Baruch Hu according to what he has, but what he does, then we should be reflecting that back to ourselves. That is a beautiful idea, Hannah. Really, really.
Yeshva, but like Yeshut. Yeshut means like essence.
Yeah.
That what one has. It's like we imagine what.
Yeah, and this translation actually is, as you've said, his translation is they imagined and compared not according to your true being. That's the simple pshat. There is that we can't get anywhere near the essence, and therefore we can only. It's a repetition of what we've said before. But I do like that idea of saying that you are not what you have, you are what you do. Very nice, very nice idea. Okay, so he says here, this is the whole poem's license. We're allowed to say that God is mighty. Not because we understand his mightiness, but because he acts in a mighty way, right? It's a bit like in today's parenting classes, right? Hands up here, everyone, if you were ever told you were a naughty boy. Jackie, you get that hand up. I'm sure you were, right? Right? We were all taught we were a naughty boy. You're not allowed to say that anymore. You know that? You're not allowed to say to a child, you're a very naughty boy or a naughty girl. What you've got to say? That was a very naughty thing that you did. Right? You're not allowed to say you're a naughty boy. Because if you say you're a naughty boy, you are telling the boy that in essence, you are naughty, you are bad. And that has an effect on their developing personality. So you have to say, you are a good boy. But what you did was a naughty act. That's how you're meant to do it today. Okay? So we're not naughty boy. We're not naughty boys. And we're not the Messiah either. Okay? He's not the Messiah. He's just a very naughty boy. Okay? So we are. So he's saying here, we're allowed to say God is mighty only because he acts mightily. We can speak of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hand because we experience divine action as protection or power, and we can speak about God's eyes only because we experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eyes on us. What is HaKadosh Baruch Hu eyes? If I say to me, if Leslie says to me, do me a favor, keep your eye on my glasses, will you, while I just go to the bathroom, make sure nothing happens to them. If I keep my eye on them, what am I doing? I'm looking after them. So we can talk about HaKadosh Baruch Hu's eye because we experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeping his eye on us. It's all anthropomorphological, but we're not allowed to be anthropomorphological. Enei Hashem, God's eyes is on us until the end of the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always keeping his eye on us. Now, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have an eye. but we're allowed to talk about it because we experience that. So you can see over and over again, you can feel the tension that this author has with the poem himself. He keeps on telling us things and then saying, but, I don't really mean that he's got an eye because ein lo dmut haguf ve'ein haguf. And again, the reason that I'm stressing this is because it's a bit difficult for us to grasp that because we're so comfortable with the idea of describing a Kodesh Baruch Hu in human terms. But when this was written, it was, it was considered to be a bit dangerous almost, right? So
Do you think this author is going through a bad time? He's trying to reassert his own faith, whereas he knows really, it's like the things we're saying, good things happen to bad people, vice versa. It's happening to him and he's trying to reassert his own faith.
Okay, let's talk about that. Jackie says, do we think that perhaps this poem was written at a difficult time in the author's life where he's trying to reinforce his own faith because he's going through a difficult time? Let's have a look and see what might have been going on when this was written. Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid lived in Germany in the late 12th century. We think that this might have been composed in Germany or thereabouts between 1100 and 1200. What was, not you, David, because you're not allowed to answer this question. What was going on in Germany in the 1100s? The Crusades, right? That was a tough time, Jackie.
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't want to be a Jew in Regensburg or Mainz or Speyer or Worm. You would not want to be there during the Crusades. That was a tough time. So it may well be that Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid was inspired to write Anim Zemirot, or whoever wrote it, one of his couple of generations before, his father or grandfather maybe, by events that were going on in Europe, in Northern Europe during that period. It was a very, very difficult time. I mentioned before Shabtai Tzvi. One of the things that enabled Shabtai Tzvi to be successful as a Messiah was Chelmenitsky, Tachvatat. There was the terrible, terrible massacres, Chelmenitsky massacres of Tachvatat. Shabtai Tzvi came along very shortly after the massacres of Tachvatat, 1648, and the ground was set for a Mashiach. It was such a harsh time that the people were desperate for a Messiah.
Not unlike today.
Not unlike today, not unlike post-Holocaust. In order to be a successful movement, you have to have the ground set for it. One day we'll do a series on Shabtai Tzvi because it is just so fascinating. And the most important thing in understanding Shabtai Tzvi is the ground that was set for him. And so you are probably right, Jackie, given that we know that it was written around about that time, given that we know it was written in Northern Europe, and given that we know that in Northern Europe at that time, there was a time of the Crusades where they massacred Jews left, right, and center, it may well be that this was written as a boost, if you like, for his own faith, which might have been challenged at that time. Or he may have written it for his community, whose belief was challenged at that time. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Let's see if we can at least start. Hey, might even finish it. Him shilucha. Him shilucha. What's the root of that word? Mashal, very good. And mashal is a parable, a comparison, a story which teaches you something. Mashal. Him shilucha, right? They told mashalim about you. They told stories about you. Barov chezyonot, through your many
Vision.
Visions. Chazon Yeshayahu, the vision of Yeshayahu. Well, yeah, Hannah's not happy. Why are you not happy, Hannah?
I understand it different. Him shilucha b'rov nisyonot. You are compared in most of the visions. Hencha echad b'chol dimyonot. You are one in all the imaginings. He's talking about God being one and the way people imagine God to be.
Hang on, we haven't got to that bit yet.
But the two go together.
Yeah, hang on. Hannah, you've got to build it up. You can't just, I mean, Colin will tell you, I mucked up his shiur this morning because I went to the,
Read the back page first.
I read the back page first. No, I didn't read the back page first, but, messed it up. No, you've got to build it up. I have to learn to keep my mouth shut. So, him shilucha barov cheshinot, they portrayed you through many visions. Whose visions are we talking about here? Yeshayahu, Chizon Yeshayahu, Yechezkel, who we mentioned before, the Yechezkel's chariot. Daniel talked about these visions. All of these visions, they compared you. Who are they? The prophets. He's talking about the prophets. These prophets, Daniel, Yechezkel, Yeshayahu, all of Zechariah, all of these prophets, Hosea is another one, all of these prophets who describe the glory of God, they portrayed you through these visions. But just in case you get the wrong idea, Hinecha echad. Hinecha. Hineni. What's Hineni? Here I am. Behold, right? It's a stressing. Hinecha. You. Behold, you. Echad. You are one. Right? Never mind all these visions. All these visions, you could get drawn away into the wrong idea. You see these visions of Isaiah and Yechezkel and all these, crazy visions of the Kisei HaKavod and the chariots of God, and you could get carried away that there are other powers in the world. Hincha echad, you are one. B'chol dimyonot, in any of the images, any of the mashalim, any of the imaginations that you may have, do not make any mistake. You are one. Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem echad. Hinecha echad. You are one throughout all images.
Is that coming to correct when the dimu achav v'lo k'siyashva? That's almost a negative.
I think it's, I don't know about correcting, it's qualifying it. Yeah, it's. I think it's the end of that sort of section, saying all of that section. Yeah, we imagine you and this, and that, and the other. But at the end of the day, folks, hincha echad b'chol dimyonot. There are many images, but there's only one God. Many images, but only one God. And he writes here, the images differ because human beings perceive God differently in different contexts, right? So you might have, and this was very common, wasn't it, back in the day? You'd have the God of war, you'd have the God of rain, you'd have the God of this and that and the other. So when it rains, oh, Baruch Hashem, the God of rain's smiling on me, right? When we win a war, Baruch Hashem, the God of war is smiling on me. No. Echad. There's only one God. This is a statement against polytheism, right? Which was, again, we have to understand, very common back in the day. So the one line here, this says one sentence I just want to read you and we'll finish with this. This line protects monotheism from poetic imagination. Nice line, huh? This line protects monotheism from poetic imagination. So don't let your imagination run wild with you. You can think of all these things, Kabbalistic stuff and visions and all sorts, right? But at the end of the day, folks, Hincha echad b'chol dimyonot. Kodesh Baruch Hu is one in all the images. Don't get carried away with all sorts of stuff. Keep your feet on the ground. Hashem is one. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem echad. That is a good place to stop.